Chris Tucker, I think, had just done Rush Hour 2, and he was talking about, his family wanted something, and then Chris Rock was bitching about something, and I went up on stage. I said, listen, people, if you ever find out that I made $10 million and I'm bitching about my sister needing a loan, you feel free to whip my ass. And the crowd just cracked up because what they were doing was funny, but it was like, look, man, you just bumped me like I'm a fucking road middle, and I'm listening to you two motherfuckers bitch about movie money, but it was funny. It wasn't like I wasn't going to go on a blog and say, tonight Chris Tucker complained about making $10 million and blah, 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 blah,
and
blah.
You did it in front of them.
Right. You do it. And it was funny. And then you fucking move on.
But the thing you also pointed out was you wanted his job.
Yeah.
The headliner's job. And to take it back to old school hip hop, you just have to dethrone the champ. You got to take the mic and blow up the house party and keep rhyming. I'll keep spinning. And the thing is, the person that wrote that blog will never, ever be as funny as Dane.
No.
Ever. Would you agree with that?
No, because
what confluence of events could happen to make that person as funny as Dane?
The thing about Dane, and I always said this, is Dane was a fucking rock star. And it was one of those things where if you don't think he's the funniest guy in the world, that's fine, whatever. A lot of people he doesn't write jokes, and it's like, nah, his jokes weren't funny on paper. He has to do it.
He's got to act them out, do the funny walk, and stand up on the stool.
But whatever it was, and I saw it live, he was a fucking rock star. Every woman loved him. Every guy wanted to be his friend. That's just the way it was.
I remember Dane in Boston or Rhode Island. He was in an improv group with Bobby Kelly called Al and the Monkeys.
Yeah, I remember he talked about that.
And we used to play, it was a sober comedy club in Rhode Island called Footprints. And they would always go up, and then it was like me and like Cato and Morin.
Yeah.
And Anthony Clark would come in, which was the grand irony because he'd come in pie-eyed. He was just fucking trashed, going, I have a cocktail, I don't fucking believe it. And Dane from back then was always funny. And there are enormous chunks of Dane's catalog that it's not my thing.
Yeah.
But to just write that a guy sucks and he's a piece of garbage and just take that sentence, anything you do on stage or I do on stage, if you just take 4 sentences and isolate them, we're done. We will never work again. It could happen to any of us.
Well, the other thing is when you're working on the new shit on a Wednesday night.
That's the other thing. Dane has earned the right to go on for an hour at the Laugh Factory on a Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. It's not like he came to your theater when it was your night.
Right. It wasn't like when it was an arena and you paid $150 for a ticket.
It's a fucking Wednesday night at the Laugh Factory, and Dane Cook walked in to do an hour to work out his stuff, and he's earned that.
Yeah.
So if he's not going to work it out there, guy that wrote the blog, where in your world does Dane work this out? At home in front of the fucking mirror?
Here's my workout question that I've yet to have anyone answer. Where does Cosby work on new shit? Cosby does new shit. Where does Cosby work out?
I think he doesn't. I think he's at the point where when he writes it, he knows it's good to go.
He just goes.
Yeah.
Because even Carlin used to work out in Prim, Nevada before he went to Vegas.
Always working it out, Carlin.
But
my wife saw Carlin at Louise's in Santa Monica, and he was sitting at the bar, and he had a big plate of spaghetti.
Yeah.
And he had hundreds of pages of notes. And he was just cataloging his next special. So he was a maniacal preparer.
Yeah, he was. I worked with him at Comedy Magic, and he did that. He took over the green room and the whole table, that long dining room table in the green room covered with note cards. And he worked on it. But Cosby, he'll bust out a new hour on you. That's
It'd be weird
the shit
if you were
that
at
is
the
amazing.
Laugh Factory on a Wednesday and Cosby comes in and goes, I would like everybody to talk about my children now. He sits down. He's so old now.
Yeah. I think last year was the first time I saw Cosby old. You know what I mean?
It's
he just aged. He seemed to age a lot last year. But I remember George Wallace. I remember when George Wallace used to come to the Laugh Factory with the pad, with just a pad of paper and a pen, and be like, I'm going to read some jokes, and just start banging them out. That was, I I like watching shit
Laugh
like
Factory is
that.
a great room, man.
Yeah, Laugh Factory.
It really
is
the room where everyone's like, it's almost like the place is wired. Like everyone's wired to the same giant battery to explode with laughter.
Yeah, the factory
It's
works.
rare that you just go in there and you're like, what's wrong with these people?
Yeah.
Dane, I remember once, was at the Laugh Factory, and he did... Now, this is something that he did that didn't get a single laugh, okay? But it inspired me. And I realized there's some guys you watch, and you realize, wow, I got to step my game up because this guy just did something. And this is the most inconsequential thing, but you'll understand it. He was talking about his mom making the bed as a kid. Because you can have... It was a whole thing like, you can never make your own bed, your room's a mess, and your mom would be like, make your... You know, I don't know what it was. It was like clean your room. You just put everything in the closet, shut the door, and you kind of put the blanket up. And your mom would come in, and she was like the magic bed maker, and she would throw that sheet up over the bed. And he just had his arms out like this, and he goes, and the sheet would just hover there in the air for like an hour. And he just stayed in that position. And I sat in that little booth where Jamie sits and drinks his wine, and I saw that fucking sheet.
Yeah.
And he just held it. And the place was like uncomfortable. But he knew that this will work down the line.
Right.
And I was going, oh, my God. It's like when Dennis Miller would sub-reference the shit out of something, and I get it, and you get it, and you realize, I don't know, I'm getting off track. But the fact of the matter is, Dane inspired me. And is Dane as funny as the ticket sales say? Probably not. However, he's a draw as much as the ticket sales say. But for these people that bash him and write blogs in particular, to that guy that wrote that blog, you're a piece of garbage. You're dark and Dane's light, and you'll never. And look, I'm not like Dane's not even like in my top 40 of favorite comics.
I say let the that's reviewer shit. That's not comic shit.
Yeah, for
you know
a
what
comic
I mean. Let
to write
a comic
a blog.
Like I did this thing called Wait, Don't Tell Me. Right, it's like a political talk thing for NPR. And they televised an episode. It was the first time they did it on BBC. And the reviewer writes, well, you know, and what they do, basically, they throw out topics or questions, and then you just make it funny. You know what I mean? Like, I might come to you, hey, Jay, you know, Mitt Romney said blah, 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 and then you got to say something funny about it. So the reviewer writes, this show should be more edgy, should be more like Stephen Colbert. And I want to say, Stephen Colbert has a staff of writers writing shit all day. Like, I just heard what this guy said. You know what I mean? Like, if you give me 5 good writers and all day, I promise you I'd come up with an edgier joke. But I just heard that. But reviewers, critics write shit like that because they don't do. But if you're a comic or if you are whatever, and you do it, I've been with musicians. You ever with a musician watching a bad musician?
No.
That shit is hilarious. Because you can see on the good musician's face how bad the other guy is. You know what I mean? Because like I don't know music, right? So if you can't play guitar, unless you're really horrible, I don't know you can't play guitar. But if I'm standing next to a guy who can play, I just look at him and he's got a look on his face like, oh shit.
It's weird that in music like that, there's like you could be like a hack at guitar. Like, oh, Eddie Van Halen's a hack. He's just, Satriani's a hack.
Yeah. But when you're, you know, and it's the same thing. Like if you're a comic, you know what great comedy is. You know what it isn't. But I can't explain that to you if you're not a comic.
Right.
You know, like you said, like the thing about holding the sheet. People don't get that.
I saw it, bro.
But a comic
I saw
can see
the
it.
sheet. I saw it. And I saw my bedroom as a child. And I felt the humidity on the Valley View Road in New Jersey in the summertime. Like I was there. Like it just fucked my head up.
It's those moments. The highest compliment a comic can give. I wish I thought of that.
Yeah.
I remember opening for Tommy Davidson and Chris Rock. They used to tour together after In Living Color. And we were in New York, and Chris Rock comes out on stage, and he's like, there's black people and there's niggas. And that's all I heard him say. I was like, holy shit, that's brilliant. It was like, how come I never fucking thought? And then it ended up being that whole thing he did on
grand opening,
on his
grand closing.
It was brilliant. But just the first time I heard him say it, like as a comic, you know, you're like, okay, you don't even have to say anymore. This is going to be the funniest shit You can't touch this shit.
I wish you were a white comic saying that.
Brilliant things.
I wish I wrote that. I wish you were like real white.
There's a whole room of white comics. The whole blue collar tour was sitting there. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, just Ron White going, how come I did not think to write down the difference between blacks and niggers? Alonzo Bodden, at Alonzo Bodden on Twitter, and Facebook is Alonzo Bodden.
Yes.
So how does Facebook?
Facebook / Alonzo Bodden.
Is it Facebook.com/Alonzo Bodden?
I don't think you have to put in .com anymore,
I am a mental patient when it comes to the Facebook stuff.
Facebook.com/Alonzo Bodden, AlonzoLive.com.
All right, so Facebook.com/Mohr Stories, I guess, is ours. But you know what? We're doing fine. Alonzo is a guy you have to go see live. And you know what? You want to know which show at an Alonzo Bodden show is the best one? Hand to God, all of them.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, brother.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Smudcast Internet Radio.